Hello, everyone. It's Saturday. That means it's Chat with Mac. We're glad to have everyone with us today. For those of you that are continual supporters of our little show here, we really appreciate you and we love your feedback. And for those of you that are new to what we do, welcome, welcome, welcome. Hey, so I wanted to talk about something we've noticed you've noticed, especially when we're on first time appointments with prospective clients and you're talking to them about their problems and some of the things they're going through, and really Nadeem doesn't have to say much before they start kind of really coming out with, hey, this is what I'm dealing with, this is what I'm dealing with. And it seems as if even though they want to change, they still want to keep, I guess, the same process or ask if you're using this system or that system. And, it just seems like what their existing guy is using, they want you to use also, even though we're worlds apart, if you will, in our process. So, yeah, I just want you to talk to the audience a little bit more about that and your thoughts on that.
Yeah, so when I'm on first time appointments, number one, I already know in my head that there's a problem. Because if everything was great, why would somebody want to meet with us, right?
Exactly.
So I already know there's a problem. And then, as we dig a little bit deeper, we start to uncover some issues, and then, a lot of times the conversation goes to, well, what kind of tool sets do you use? Or we have this kind of a backup. Can we support that? Or can we do this? Can we do that their way? So in my mind, I'm thinking, you guys have been doing this for, whatever, 5, 10 years. You've brought in several different providers at different times. You've tried hiring people in-house, and every time you did not get the results you wanted. And now here we are sitting in front of each other, and you're asking me to do the same things that you've already tried, but you expect different results. It doesn't work that way.
It
So
doesn't.
it's, part of what I have to do is I have to tell the prospect that our process is what's going to give you different results. We can guarantee world class results, but if it's done our way, we
Yeah.
cannot change our ways, change our process, and still guarantee you the same results. That's not how it works. Now, that's one thing that I run into is, people wanting to do certain things a certain way using certain tools, but then expecting different results, or doing things a certain way expecting different results. These are companies who've been in business for 15, 20, 30 years, and they've tried different things in IT. They've never really had the results that they wanted, and that's why they're talking to us. So it's my job to kind of give them that knowledge of what makes us different. How can we guarantee different results? And at the end of the day, it's all about results.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter how you get there. The bottom line is you need to get there.
Yeah.
And if somebody can come in with the process already in place and get you there, then that's all that matters,
That's it.
right? Now, part of the other side of the equation is that, of course, one is what we talked about, where they're wanting to use the same process but expect different results. And then, the other thing is sometimes these companies have somebody else in place already. They have another IT company, IT services provider already providing the services. So when we talk about our results, our guarantees, we talk a little bit about process. The decision maker in their head now starts thinking, oh, I know everything I need to know, and I can implement with my current IT guy, right? So they think that in just one conversation, they have gained all the knowledge that we have gained over the last 25 years in just one conversation, and they can replicate our process. Number one, I don't give out our process, the secret sauce, so to speak. I will talk about roles. I will talk about what these roles do, what the dedication of roles means, and what it delivers. But the huge piece, the secret sauce I'm leaving out, which is our
There it
process
is.
list. I'm not even going, I mean, that's like over 1,000 different things that we touch on, that we standardize on. There is no way I can talk to anybody in about 30 or 40 or even a few weeks. I can't transfer all of that in a few weeks even. So all of a sudden in one 30, 40-minute conversation, the decision makers thinking, oh, I can replicate this with my existing IT guys. So they'll go to their IT guy and they'll run over there and they'll say, hey, I want you to do this, 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 and this. Can you guys do this? And then we can be better. And of course, what's their IT provider going to say? Absolutely, we can do this. Hey, I'm sorry, we haven't been, up to the task, but we're going to change our ways. We're gonna do better, and it's going to be all good. It's going to be good. Of course, they're going to say that. That's not the problem. The problem is they cannot implement the processes that's taken us 25 years to implement. They cannot implement it overnight. It's going to take them years to get that all done. It's going to take them years to standardize and put that process in place. So now the question becomes, even if they were 100% in and they start to put those processes in place, it's going to take them 1.5 to 2 years before they can get that done. And during that time, you're the guinea pig. They're trying it out on you. So, customers or prospects thinking that they can just, talk to me for an hour and then go to their existing guys or implement it in-house and get their IT guys who do things a little differently. And all of a sudden, magically, everything is going to be good. It doesn't work that way. It's the 25, 30 years of experience behind it is what we bring to the table, and our processes are in place. Take the example of one of the big things that's happening that I'm seeing right now is compliance. We have our processes so well tuned in that a lot of the compliance companies, the auditors out there, when they hear that we're doing it and they look at some of the things, even if they've never met us before, they look at some of our processes, they're like, okay, if you're with these guys, you're good. We know we don't have to worry about the process side of things, the monitoring, all that thing. We don't have to worry about it.
And funny thing, what Nadeem was saying has happened where a lot of these compliance insurance are like, oh, you're working with PCSN, or they know that the process is so thorough. It's actually amazing. I hate to toot our horn, but hell, let's toot it. I mean, people, they're just like, oh, if you're working with those guys, they know it. That's how.
Yeah. And just to expound on that a little bit, we're doing services and compliance, not just companies in Texas, which is our prime target market is Texas, right? But these are companies in other states that we're doing this for, and there are companies that specialize only in compliance, and we already have relationships in place with them because they have seen how we do things. So they recognize that, hey, it makes my job as a compliance auditor easier if that part is already taken care of. They're using these guys, their process is down, it's hashed out, we've already done it. So we know those guys know what they're doing. So we can now focus on just this, piece that the client has to do, and everybody's happy. They're compliant, and audit passes, everything is good. But that's the thing. It takes time. And if an existing provider or your in-house IT guy says, hey, I'm gonna spend, instead of spending 10 hours a day on stuff, I'm gonna spend 20 hours a day on stuff, that's not magically gonna fix things. It takes time to hone in your process. They cannot do it overnight. They cannot do it by just doubling their time or throwing more manpower at the problem. That's not going to solve anything. The only thing is it's going to actually exacerbate everything, because now you have to train these new guys if you're just throwing bodies at the problem. So it's not something that you can just do overnight. It takes time to implement that. And if your team does not already have this in place, it's going to take them about 1.5 to 2 years to put these things in place. Even if they knew what those things were, it will take them about 1.5 to 2 years. And by that time, all that time, that you're not going to get the results that we are guaranteeing, that we are bringing to the table. And that's what makes us different, makes us world class. And not just us. There are a lot of other MSPs out there who are world class as well.
Yeah. I remember when we were, as a company, kind of making this switch to where we are now. Um, I want to say maybe it was about almost 2 years ago. I remember Nadeem really saying that he was trying to get away from. I don't know if you can say we were, more of break fix back then, but it was like there was this total switch to where we were and where we are now, and from what and I'm on the sales side, so I'm not a tech, but from what I saw, there was some work, and there was some almost mind shifts, if you will, that needed to take place when you were doing this. I mean, I don't know if you want to talk a little bit more
Yeah,
about that.
so that's a very good point. That wasn't the shift. The shift actually was that we have to. It was our pricing model was being changed. We
That was
have to
it too.
charge customers a fixed amount per month so that we don't have to ask for approval for every little thing that we do.
Yeah.
Because every little thing that we do wasn't an additional cost. So what we came up with, back in that time, what you remember, what we came up with was that we are going to charge on a per node basis. This is what we're going to charge. This is what our minimum is, because if with that minimum we can implement things and secure the infrastructure properly like we need to. We got to a point where, before we were just, onboarding anybody who would come to us, right? We wanted that extra business, so we were like, okay, anybody will help you out. You need you have 20 or 15 computers. You need us to implement a server. We'll come in, we'll do it. Great, no problem. Well, the IT world changed dramatically in this recent time frame. And what happened is just those projects don't cut it anymore, because you can do a project, but then, let's say somebody hired us to implement a server. That's one thing. But then who is going to do that routine maintenance to make sure that server infrastructure is secure? It's patched. There's backups running. Who is monitoring and who is doing all that process? So we very quickly realized that we have to give that whole enchilada in in a way to customers. We can't just piece it out and then expect them to get the right results. And what we learned is when we were doing these little pieces, when something broke, because somebody, let's say we implemented a new server, and their IT guys weren't backing it up or monitoring it, and then something happened and they needed to recover something. All of a sudden, their IT guy goes to the owner and says, "Well, we can't do it." And now the owner is going to be like, "Hey, PCSN, you implemented this. How come you didn't say this, or you didn't tell me this? How come you didn't advise me that I need to do backup?" And that's just an example. I mean, there's a hundred different things that you need to keep track of. That's why we have this, over 1,000-point checklist that we standardize things against. But decision makers don't realize that. They're looking at just 1 point problem, which is, first was our server's too slow, or we don't have a server, we need to get a server. Boom, let's get somebody to put in the server. Then it becomes, something happened, we needed to recover data, we couldn't recover it, let's put in a backup. Boom, let's put that one piece in. They're just piecemealing it, and over time they don't realize that how much money they're losing when they couldn't recover that data on time. How much money did they lose? It's almost like that pipeline hack, right? It would have been so much cheaper for them to implement the right things to begin with, instead of getting hacked and getting that ransomware attack and then having to pay the ransom to get some of the data back. I mean, it is never cost effective to. Let me put it this way, there are some people who are of the mindset that I don't want to do things the right way, I'd rather just pay the fine. Well, in this situation, that fine is always a lot more than it would have been if you just paid it as you go.
It is.
So, I think we've given people a little bit of sense of why we made that switch, years ago. Why we are always talking about, in this day and age, you cannot implement IT solutions without a fixed fee program. You cannot go on a ad hoc basis, on a per project basis, it just doesn't work like that. It's almost like a vehicle. You cannot just buy a vehicle and then expect it to last you, 5, 6 years without having to do anything to it. You always have to do maintenance. You have to change tires. You have to check brakes. You have to replace brakes. You have to change engine oil. You have to do all these things for that vehicle to keep running. And an IT environment is even more complex than a vehicle. So if you have to do all this maintenance on a vehicle, how much maintenance do you have to do for IT?
But are you seeing, based on the meetings that you've been having with, these CEOs and these business owners, are you finally seeing a shift in that thinking now, where they're understanding that they need more than just a humdrum in order to make sure that they're running like a fine-tuned machine that they need to be?
Yeah, so I'll give you a small example of the shift that I'm seeing that is happening. A few months ago, well, maybe a year ago, we were running into companies where we would come in and say, hey, we need to implement this system so that we can keep all your compliance policies and documentation in one place. So when the time comes for an audit, or if we need to audit, we have everything in one place. We don't have to try to hunt down these different things in individual silos. Back then, people used to say, oh, well, I don't want to make it easy for the auditors. I would rather give them this big slab of paper so they have to dig through and find what they need. I want to make it harder for them. I don't want to make it easy for them. Well, now we are in a situation where customers and prospects are coming to us and saying, can you make it easy because we can't keep up with it? Our insurance provider is looking for this info and we can't keep up with it. Can you make it easy? So now the table has kind of turned to where before we had to go to the customer and say, hey, Mr. Customer, we need to consolidate your documentation and policies in one place. Now, back then the customer was always like, oh no, we don't want to do that. Now the customer's coming to us and saying, hey, do you have something where you can make my life easier for this? Because I can't get a renewal on cyber insurance unless I have all this stuff in place. So now, so yes, there is a big shift that I'm seeing from the customer side where they're now understanding the repercussions, and the whole landscape is changing, right? I mean, there are a lot of government entities and even regional governments that are now starting to implement security baselines that they will require from small to medium-sized business. Anybody who has a network, they're going to start to require certain kind of baselines that you have to have in place because it just makes sense, right? Yeah. IT makes jobs a lot easier for a lot of people, including some of the bad guys.
Wait a minute. You can't just end on that. What do you feel? Wait a minute. So why do you say that? As far as I understand the business, but the bad guys. Why do you say that?
So here's the thing. People don't follow standards when they implement infrastructure. And when you don't follow standards, or if you don't have standards and you implement something, you are leaving bullseye on your network for the bad guys, and that's easy pickings, right? So here's a scenario that I always tell people, always have multiple layers for security, right? Because when the bad guy is looking to attack, they're going to peel one layer, they're going to peel second layer, they're going to peel the third layer. By the fourth layer, they're going to be like, I'm going to go somewhere else, because there's such a lot of targets on the other side where they have just one layer or they don't have any layers at all. And there's a lot of businesses out there that have no layers at all. And I'm not joking, I'm not kidding. It's almost like not only are you leaving your front door unlocked, you are leaving it open. They don't have to push it. You're leaving it open. It's that bad. So the thing is, you are making it easier by implementing systems where a lot of your intellectual property is sitting inside of, let's say, a server or some kind of a repository. You're making it easier for the bad guys to just break into this repository and get everything they want, right? As opposed to having the proper standards in place to where not only are you consolidating that information, you're at the same time making it harder for the bad guys to break in. But another thing that a lot of companies miss is when you let go of a person, whether it's on good terms or bad terms. How do you secure your network? So if you're consolidating this information, then all you have to do is disable this user that has left the company in one place, and boom, you've locked them out of everything. As opposed to in the past where it might have been 4, 5, 6 multiple systems that you have to kind of go through your checklist and disable their accounts from. Now, if it's all consolidated, it makes your life easier, right? You disable it in one place, boom, it's done. On the other hand, if you don't secure that, the bad guys have just one place to break in, and boom, they have access to everything. So it's a double-edged sword, right? Now, I'm of the mindset, and we've done this at PCSN, internally as well, is to consolidate the information, and it's all cloud-based. We consolidate it, we put multiple layers around it, we follow our standards. These are the same standards that we implement for our customers. We implement that, and then it makes life easier for onboarding or offboarding people, users, because now it's just one place where we have to disable a user, or it's one place where we have to give certain permissions to a user. Now, when we onboard a customer, it takes us about 3 months, about 90 days to get to that standard baseline. And that's when the customer really starts to see the benefit of going with a world-class MSP. And I would say that's a great place to leave it at.
I like it.
So we won't leave it on the bad notion of bad guys and how they have an advantage. We'll leave it at where we are, what it means to be a world-class MSP, and how these processes and standards really not just make your entire infrastructure robust, but also robust from a security perspective. Awesome. So everybody, have a great day. It's a great day out there. It's nice and sunny in Texas. So, if you're doing something outside, just stay hydrated. It's hot. Have a good one, back.
Have a good one, sir.